Welcome back to another edition of the Fantasy Authority podcast. I am your host, Kevin Steele. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyWrath13. Joined, as always, by my co-host, C. KutzerFF, also known as hashtag HedgeLife. We are joined today by two special guests. You know, we've been doing this run through all the positions as pre-combine. Well, here we are. Pornhub season is upon us. Finally, we are here. It is the night before the combine really gets going, so the players hit the field and actually start doing stuff, and we start moving ranking these guys way up our rankings because why not? Henry Ruggs goes out and runs a 4.2, and everyone will move to number one because we didn't already know that, and that's what happens. So it's going to be terrific to watch this weekend. But again, we are joined by two special guests this week. We are joined by Derek Brown. You can find him on Twitter at Dbro_FFB. And I'm going to murder his last name. I know his first name is Brandon, and you can find him on Twitter at Dynasty Deep Dive. Brandon, how do we say your last name?
Lejeune.
Lejeune. Okay. See, yes. That wasn't as bad as I thought.
No, but you say it like it sounds like it.
All right, then. So, how are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I appreciate the invite.
With that kind of intro, I'm ready to lube it up and let's go, Kev. I mean, come on, man. We got tons of time to talk about these prospects, baby.
Yeah, I got the KY ready. It's ready to go. Let's do this.
From 6 to midnight.
It is. It's going to be fantastic. So we keep it all rated on here. This is the PG stuff that everyone else has. So, you got to do something to keep the lights on.
Yeah, I don't think we want the lights on for this one, Kev.
Yeah, dim them down a little bit.
Now with this intro, turn on the music, turn down the lights. Let's get the mood going, baby.
Hey, I'm here for it, right? I mean, let's go. Turn on, put the candles out, put on some Casey JoJo or some Boys to Men or something. Oh my
God, you went there.
Right? Turn the lights off like that. See?
We're not even 5 minutes in. This thing's already off the rails, Kev. Dear God to heaven.
All right, then. So here we are. We are ready to talk about the combine. It is tomorrow, where everything is going. We've had the measurements and everything else. We've already had the hand size debate, right? You know what that means. And the Joe Burrow has small hands, which I find is funny because what they say, what do you have, 9-inch hands or something like that? But like Pat Mahomes has like 9.25. Like, is that quarter inch? I guess yes. It depends on who you ask, I guess.
I just love that Burrow's jumping into hand size Twitter and making his snide remarks about it and saying he's going to hang him up. And then you have Brian Edwards calling out draft Twitter for apparently they were talking about he thinks he's slow. So it's always just a lot of fun to see the prospects jumping in and the things we always refer to each other as draft Twitter and that sort of thing. But to see prospects kind of talk about us in that light too is pretty funny.
Oh, the hand size stuff, dear God. It always falls under yearly the things that I have to mute over and over again. Like I don't care at all about hand size. As long as you're not rolling around with like mitts that have like 2 fingers on them, does not matter to me.
Yeah, I have a feeling those players really laugh at all of us on draft Twitter. They probably get a kick out of all the things that we talk about and criticize when we really, enjoy watching the game and provide analysis. But I'm sure they get a big kick out of all of us.
I mean, for God's sakes, there's a player in the NFL that only has one hand. I mean, I'm just saying,
Right.
So,
and he benches more than any of us. So there you go. Don't make that bad man.
So let's jump right into it a little bit here. Let's just jump right in, as I like to do. No foreplay, just get right after it. And let's go ahead and let's start talking about the running backs, right? I think in this class there's the running backs and the wide receivers. The tight ends is kind of trash. There's some interesting prospects in there, but they take so long to break out. Quarterbacks we kind of already know. I don't think this is a particularly deep quarterback class. So let's go ahead and just jump right into the running backs. First off, I want to know, what is your guys' top 5 running backs right now?
Well, I'll go first. I have JT on top, Swift, Dobbins, Akers, and Allaire. And I'm sure my top 5 probably matches everybody's else, but it's probably a different mixture. But I like Jonathan Taylor. I just like his size. Swift obviously has a lot of skill for his lateral movement, has good vision. Dobbins is great too. And Akers, even though he, had that terrible offensive line, there's still question marks on his play. I think he's going to be, a high draft capital pick. And then Edwards-Helaire, what a season he had. And he's just shot right up boards. But I think if you were to, you guys can confirm as well, I think that's probably everyone's top 5, but everybody has it mixed up.
I don't know, man. If you've been living in the Twitter streets, there's some definite Zach Moss in the top 3. All kinds of craziness in the Twitter streets right now, which I think Twitter is going to collectively burn when that guy goes like late 4th, early 5th or something like that. And then Twitter is going to sit here and like just riot whenever Zach Moss doesn't get drafted to the 5th round. But I digress. My top 5, I don't have any until we have draft capital, until we get some combine, like some 40 times and stuff. I think that everybody hit kind of the benchmarks as far as weights go to not really move or nudge anybody for me. So until we have some of that tied to these guys, it's really I have more in tiers than like firm rankings, but it's my top tier is Jonathan Taylor, Edwards-Helaire, and Akers. And my second tier is actually Swift and Dobbins, and a lot of people will be thrown off by that. But there's just some concerns that I have a little bit as far as like landing spot for DeAndre Swift. If you even look at like his metrics and missed tackles, and I just have concerns about him. That I think that there's a whole lot of like he was the consensus 101, and considering whenever I watched him on film, I was expecting more, I'll be honest. I think and I'm not trashing the guy. He's a really good back. But I think that he's going to be a little bit more landing spot dependent than I think a lot of people think. I think scheme dependent. I think that he's going to be a lot better in his own scheme. I think he's going to be a lot better, or his production is going to be a little bit more tied to his offensive line and how his running style. Not that every running back isn't affected somewhat by their offensive line, but I think some of these guys, especially that top 3 for me, I think they have the ability to create for themselves and create yards a little bit better. And then Dobbins, man, I'm just lower on him than a lot of other people. I just don't. His stat lines and what I see on film from him do not match up for me. And the guy's got great measurables, but like, I just don't see it, man. He's good north-south, but as far as like just seeing this wowing prospect, like this guy that broke the Nike Spark performance and like at age 17, like for all of the things that you see like in the stat lines, like versus like times and things of that nature, like I don't see it whenever I turn on the tape. Like I literally don't. And maybe that's just a shortcoming on my end, but I don't feel like it lines up. Whereas some of these other guys where you turn it on and you're just like, man, they can play. And not to say that Dobbins is not a good player. I think he is a good player, and he's probably going to get drafted in the top 2 rounds. But it doesn't match up for me.
No, I agree. I have the same top 5, and I feel the same way about Dobbins, just in terms of, like you said, Derek. He broke the spark thing. He was the leader in that class, and maybe if we didn't know that, we wouldn't think anything about it, but the fact that he has all those measurables, like you don't see that athleticism line up there. And the same thing always happens too. You're not, and that's where I think the combine is definitely overrated. You're never going to have any of these guys in underwear run a straight line. Like this, it doesn't necessarily match up to anything on the field. And every year we see guys that we think are more athletic on tape bomb the combine, someone like Devin Singletary. And then before we went live, we were doing a little tight end talk, and we were talking about Mike Gesicki. He crushed the combine, and he was someone who I didn't necessarily see that translate on tape. But yeah, same top 5 for the running backs for me, and all this is just going to get straightened out once we have landing spots and draft capital. Although today I did see, I guess the Atlanta Falcons have been talking to Cam Akers a decent amount, and I really like that fit.
Cool, baby. Don't we're making all the euphemisms and stuff right now. I might need to go change my shorts, cover some things up with that. I've been really wanting that. I think that there is a sweet spot. The Falcons have 3 picks in the top 2 rounds, and they can fill a lot of holes. And Edwards-Helaire and Akers kind of feel like they're going to.
Bow chicka bow wow.
Oh man, I didn't even try to do that, but that worked well.
He was about to start singing Casey and JoJo.
Yeah, I like that fit. That Clyde's Edwards-Helaire in Atlanta is a great fit on that turf. As juky and spinny as that guy is.
I think you're going to sit in that round 3 spot. I think it's a sweet spot for the Falcons. I think Edwards-Helaire and Akers really could end up there.
I agree.
Yeah,
they definitely need a running back. So.
Yep, I think Freeman is a gone man. Bye-bye.
Yep.
No, I agree. I think that, with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think what he measured in at 5'7", does he think that he could be something like Maurice Jones-Drew, where, that's similar size. I don't know if he has the same speed that Maurice Jones-Drew did coming out, but very similar type of back, size, speed, kind of has that, but a very good pass catcher, which same thing with MJD. So, for me, when I kind of look at him, that's kind of what stood out to me is kind of looking at him.
Yeah, I like it from a size perspective. I'm really curious how he's going to test out in short area quickness. He's not a guy that I think is going to – I think he'll hit the benchmarks that we need for running backs in the 40 time and stuff like that. I do think that his short area is going to be off the charts, just considering watching him game-wise. Guy's got some moves he can definitely create for himself. I think a lot of people are talking about, there's a lot of love floating around for him, and justifiably so. People are like, well, is he just a product of the offense? And I'm like, why are we just dinging this dude? Like, just because he was in a good offense? I get it in some aspects, but then in other ones, it's like, but he performed. He played well. Like, the guy was one of the only 2 running backs to catch 50 passes last year, and he did it in dramatic style. He held off a top-rated recruit for that starting job the entire year. So I think there needs to be some context there, but I've heard some rumblings about, the LSU offense was so good, and was he just a boat that just got raised by the tide? And I'm like, it's not like the dude fell on his face. He played really well, and if you watch him just singularly on the field, it's not like he didn't create yards for himself. It's not like he didn't make plays on his own when he was asked to in open space, in traffic. So I'm not buying all the, it was the LSU offense, things of that nature. I think the dude deserves the hype he's getting, honestly.
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate for just a minute here. So I was reading an article not too long ago where he faced, he ran the ball a lot in 3 wide receiver sets. Yep. So, they had the spread defense out where, that he wasn't facing loaded boxes. And the other concern that I think people have is his pass protection. He's going to be able to stay on the field for, he's probably, I don't think he's an all 3 down back, but, again, that's a concern I think people have given his size. Is he going to be able to protect the quarterback?
Well, I think the other side of that is if he's running routes, it doesn't matter what he does in pass pro.
Mm-hmm.
It depends, and some of that could be landing spot. Like if he goes to a team that was that has a better offensive line, they're not going to ask him to do that much. I think it's going to be part of it, but considering his size, he looked pretty rocked up at the combine. At least pictures I saw of him. Dude has definitely been hitting the weights, but as far as his size goes, I'm not really surprised. I guess a ton by the pass pro. I think that there are some things he can definitely clear up in his game, but I agree with you, Brandon. I saw him get blown up on a lot of different plays in pass protection. I just think that fit is going to be big. Like, say he goes to Atlanta. I think that considering what they invested in the offensive line, if they reinvest, they grab anybody early, I think they probably address defense with those top 2 to 3 picks. But before, if they take him in the 3rd, but I think that's a good spot considering how that offense looks like it possibly shakes out, that he could be utilized heavily in the pass game.
Yeah, I think that with Helaire too, the thing you see is his ability on the angle routes and the option routes. His ability to create separation too, and it's not just he's not getting his receptions just from dump offs and kind of accumulating the stats that way. So, and Derek, like you said, I think that's a good point about was the LSU offense, borderline historic this year? Yes, but you also have the instances where he is facing penetration from the defensive line, and he's able to create those yards on his own. So
I see where you went there. I like that. I do want to mention real quick too that if you're watching the film on him too, he not only spent time in the slot, like everybody that kind of gets tossed around about every running back, like, oh, he lined up in the slot, he ran routes. This dude got lined up out wide. Like Brady put him out wide. Like it wasn't just like he got slot time. They lined him up out wide as a wide receiver too on some snaps. So I think that type of creativity, you hand that to an NFL offense, and if that's even part of his game in translation to the next level, it's just another wrinkle that an offense can use.
I got a question for you guys about him. Do you think there's a good chance in the draft that he gets drafted as a secondary piece, maybe to a team that already has a running back solidified, but they're looking for, that third down back, maybe an equal split time? Because in a lot of NFL teams now, they're just going to a committee. They're not looking for the bell cow anymore. So we could be disappointed in his landing spot that he goes somewhere where he's going to have to share a backfield.
It's a concern.
I think it just depends on where, for one, and how obviously, is he Austin Eckler? Like, does he get that kind of opportunity? Then yeah, I think he's fine. But it's just going to really depend on his landing spot and where he gets selected. For me, which is king for all of this anyway. But
I think considering what you're talking about with his skill set, Brandon, and if anybody has worries about his pass protection, I don't know if a team's going to even view him as a third down back in that sense. Like, unless they're going to ask him to run a lot of routes. I think the ticket for him is that people need to look at him as an early down runner. But could I see him fall into a spot where he's going to be in a committee? Yeah, it's definite. Look, if we're all high on these prospects and things like that, but could a lot of these guys get squashed in the draft just by going to teams that, that's definitely going to happen. That's what every single year when we start talking about prospects, and everybody gets a massive bulge over like where guys could go and could they land and be the guy and get drafted in the top 2 rounds. And I'm looking at you, all the Zach Moss hypers. I think that's every year. So I think the draft is going to leave a lot of people weepy for a lot of the love that we have for all these guys.
It's very much the Jeremy McNichols effect of, like, I will never forget that dude. Every year, it always pops right back in my mind at this time of the year. Draft Twitter loved Jeremy McNichols. He was a stud. He was going to be a beast. He could do everything. He was a 3-down back. And the NFL said, fuck you. Like, we don't care what you think, Draft Twitter. Get out. Like, and that's the way it goes, right? And that's why, like, I think it's smart to invest a lot of time in understanding who these prospects are and stuff like that. But ultimately, it comes down to where they're drafted. Because it doesn't matter what you think, Mr. I grind tape and, that's what I do. It matters what the NFL thinks. Because if the NFL isn't going to value him, and players that a lot of people like end up going 6th, 7th round or undrafted, then it doesn't matter. And so I think it's smart to know who these guys have, a baseline understanding of who they are, what their athletic measurables are, what they did in college. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter until April. And then where they land, who they're going to, and what their opportunity is. Because at the end of the day, that's really king, and that's really all that matters in all of this. So, yeah. So that, I don't know. That's just my take on that.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think we can move guys up and down if he's 2 or 3 or tier 1, tier 2, but until we see where they land, we're all just assuming and having fun with this process, but nothing's going to be solidified until we see where they land for sure.
Of course. 100%. So, one player for me, like Jonathan Taylor, is a guy that I just haven't really understood why he is not really more like the consensus number 1 guy. Because really the only things that I can find wrong with him is, other than that he played at Wisconsin, which I don't know why that matters to people. I get the PTSD. There's certain schools where guys come from and they just don't want nothing to do with them. It's like a quarterback from the Big 12. But, there's always outliers. There's always things of that. But the dude absolutely demolished all 3 years. And it wasn't like he just got volume, and so that's why. Like, he still had like a 6.4 yards per carry, despite the fact that he had 900 carries in his career in 3 years. And he's still young. And so he dominated from the start as a freshman, and so I just don't understand why for people that he's just not the number one guy, because we see he checks all the boxes and everything you're looking for. I think he's going to destroy the combine, and I think he's going to be a guy who's going to end up. It probably has the shot to be the Josh Jacobs where he gets drafted in the first round and has that opportunity because he's got that kind of skill set. Yes, I understand that he has a lot of carries, but I don't know what that means. I don't know what his body, what he's going to be able to take and what he's not. I believe he's never missed a game in his college career, which says a lot about his about his how much he's going to be able to stay on the field. So other than that, and I think people talk about he wasn't used that much as a pass catcher. Well, he didn't, get 60 receptions or anything, but I believe, he had 26 receptions this year, 36 targets. Before that, he wasn't as heavily targeted, but he can be a productive pass catcher as well. So I don't know. I've seen some people put like some crazy guys at number one, but to me, it's like I just don't see the knock or what people wouldn't want in Jonathan Taylor as the number one. I
agree with you. So. I mean, some people might be concerned about his fumbles, but I'm not concerned about that. I mean, Sonny Michel came in as a fumbler, and he did it, last year and a half. He didn't fumble the ball much at all. So I think that's, he gets in with the NFL coaches. They can fix those problems. But I completely agree with you. I think he's got the size and everything, and I think you're right. He might just be by the time it's all said and done before the draft, I think he's going to be probably the number one guy.
I love Jonathan Taylor. You want to hear any kind of hate out of me? I think the thing that gets glossed over, this dude, and if you listen to him in some of those interviews, the videos that are floating around, this guy is smart, man. He's so sharp. He apparently made a few visits to Harvard, as well as because that I think, and I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but that ability and to have something between your ears going to the NFL level, I think is something that we discount sometimes. For the ability to break down, learn an offense and stuff. Like if you listen to Mayock and he's talking about wide receivers and stuff, if we're looking at translation for running backs and things like learning pass protection schemes, different fits and the nuances of an offense, Taylor's a guy that I don't have any concerns about. I love him. I think anybody that looking at the pass game limitations, or at least from a volume perspective, I think is kind of worried a little bit too much about the wrong things. I think just because he did not catch a lot of passes in college does not mean that he can't. I was happy with the routes that I saw him run. I was happy with what I saw out of his 2019 games as far as his ability to catch the ball. He looked natural doing it. He displayed soft hands. I'm not worried about him. I mean, if I were to peg anybody as my top running back, the guy that I think is probably going to get drafted first and deserves it is going to be Jonathan Taylor. So, yeah, I'm all in.
Yeah, there wasn't too much Jonathan Taylor at number one talk up until guys like Ray Garvin, Curtis Patrick, and Scott Barrett started talking about it. So that narrative kind of got squashed. But up until about a week and a half ago, it was Derek, like you talked about earlier, it was Swift at 101, and that was kind of just the way it was, and no one else was really considered for that spot. If you're gonna say anything about Jonathan Taylor's tape or try and find something that you don't like, I think you're getting nitpicky. Shameless plug, just dropped a Jonathan Taylor article on thefantasyauthority.com, and the only thing that I saw from him that it's not even I didn't like, but he had a tendency to kind of just break back into the middle. Like there was a bunch of times where I saw something on the outside that was open that he easily could have just hit a jump cut, got to the outside and picked up extra yards. But I don't know if it's necessarily a vision thing or if the fact that he's just so comfortable running inside the tackles that's kind of naturally where he just goes. But I mean, if that's your biggest negative on a guy, you're just getting nitpicky at that point. And as far as his receptions go, I think that's kind of like a Leonard Fournette thing where he just literally wasn't asked to do that in college. But, whenever he was asked to, he performed well. I saw him make some adjustments on passes that were thrown behind him. It wasn't just dump offs and screens. He was running a couple of routes. I saw him run some out routes and some crossers and stuff. And, he looked fine doing it. Is he going to be a Christian McCaffrey receiving weapon? No. but can he do what Leonard Fournette did and have, what did he have this year, like 60 catches, 65 catches, something like that?
Hmm.
Can he do that? Yes, absolutely.
Can he be like another former alma mater and be like Melvin Gordon, who didn't show much of passing,
exactly.
catching in college? Absolutely. I think that his skill as a runner is going to put him on the field, and he's gonna have some draft capital, man. Like, I don't know. If there's a guy that I think can go in the first round, I actually think it's Jonathan Taylor and not DeAndre Swift.
I can see.
I don't know. I don't know if y'all think that's hot, but I don't think it's hot at all.
So.
I think it's unreasonable at all.
Can anyone explain this Zach Moss top 1, 2, 3 thing to me? And I like him. I really do. I like him. I think he's a solid prospect. But over any of the guys in the top 5, like if you want to put him at 5 or something and maybe kick out Edwards-Helaire because he only had the 1 year of production or something like that, like I guess. But like I don't get the top 2, top 3 thing. I don't know. He's an average athlete. I don't think he's going to test well. He doesn't have great lateral movement. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah,
I have a theory.
Go ahead. You lead off because I'm probably going to poo-poo whatever. So
No. I think people just look at the stats. I think a lot of people look at his production, and they look at that and just see that how many times he carried the ball, how much yardage he has. But he's been hurt a lot, and I think a lot of people just like to be different. I think a lot of people like to put different names out there and not go with the consensus and Twitter, and everyone has an opinion. So I mean, if somebody views the film, they think he's a top 5 guy, so be it. You believe in what you believe, but he's outside. He's in my top 10, as far as tiers and stuff. But I mean, I would never consider him in top 5. But a year ago in the Devy world, in all the Devy drafts that I participated in, he was probably up there this time last year in Devy drafts being selected high. So his stock has definitely fallen, but I don't think people may have forgotten just how this time last year that he was a lot more respected than he is now.
He just looks like an in-between the tackles grinder to me. Like, I don't know. Like, I haven't seen anything that's like blown me away with him. So there's other guys that I think that deserve more, maybe like a Keyshawn Vaughn or something like that.
I like Keyshawn.
Yeah. So
I think they're similar in terms of their running style, but Keyshawn Vaughn is actually athletic. If you like Zach Moss but you don't like Keyshawn Vaughn, like I don't understand at all. Like they're to me they're similar. They're downhill, one cut, get up the field. They'll run you over. They're physical, except Keyshawn Vaughn has a little bit of burst to him, and I don't see that from Moss.
I don't understand all the Moss hype. I think he's the one guy in this class that carries the longest injury history. Like if you stack him up against the other 5, 4, 5, 6 guys, I mean, hell, even a top 10, he's got pretty much the longest injury rap sheet. And so considering that, and he's not a guy that's going to be breaking away into space. He's not a guy that's going to be avoiding tackles. I mean, that's really what his MO, like everything you hear out there is all this evaded tackles and missed forced tackles and all this kind of stuff. He's not a guy that's going to be avoiding contact. So for a guy that's going to be, and I agree with Cody, I don't think he's going to test well. He ran a 4.76 coming out. I think he's probably going to end up, man, if he gets he might touch the high 4.5s, but I really don't think that. I think he's probably going to end up in the 4.6s. I think that's just going to cement everybody's Kareem Hunt comps, which I think it's not going to move anybody off the Zach Moss love. But I don't think that he's going to – the other part about all of this is that we're talking about the draft and things. Like, I don't think he's going to honestly garner the draft capital to get the opportunity. I really don't. I think that he is a guy that I'm not going to be surprised if he slips, like I was talking about, slips to round 5, and then all of Twitter burns. I don't want to hate on the guy, but as far as, like, all of this hype that you're seeing in the Twitter streets, like – I think it's all about like a house of cards about to come crashing down. And I think a lot of people are going to have to go back and watch the film again and sit there and say, okay, like, what did I see? Is this really the honest to God truth? And I mean, yeah, could it be a certain amount of, like Brandon's talking about, people just trying to be different with the ranks versus the chalk top 5. Sure, I think there's a certain amount of that out there, but I think Moss. I don't think that is with his health, like his injuries and stuff like that, that history, I don't think that it's going to translate well to the NFL. I don't think that you take a guy that had problems staying like healthy in college and you move him to an area where there's bigger, faster dudes and he's inviting contact. I don't think that improves. So I'll look at him as a committee guy. I'll look at him probably not as getting any kind of draft capital. I'll have him on no dynasty squads. I'll probably have no exposure because he's going to go way earlier than I'm willing, even comfortable to take him. So
I think the thing we have to remember with the combine too is these guys are literally practicing and training for these specific events. Like there was, I think it was Stick to Football. I think it was their podcast. They had Zach Moss on. And he was originally slated to go to the Senior Bowl, and they asked him why he pulled out, and he said he wanted to focus on the combine, and they started asking him about that kind of thing, and what he's been focusing on. The only thing he mentioned was he wants to get a good 40 time. So it's possible he comes out and hits that like 4.53, kind of in that range, but that doesn't mean that's going to translate to the field. Like these guys have literally been doing this and only this for the past couple months.
Transition a little bit, Cody. Just to kind of harken back real fast, since we're talking about 40 times and guys, really honing in, trying to smash the combine. Didn't Taylor weigh in? Wasn't everybody a little bit surprised about he was a little bit lighter than I thought he was going to come in? I think that dude's going to blow it up at the combine. I think he's going to run faster than we probably think. I think it was 209.
Jonathan Taylor? No, he was 5'10", 226.
Oh, crap. I'm thinking about somebody else. Never mind.
Edwards-Helaire was 5'7", 207. Swift came in at 212.
Was it Cam Akers? Is that who it was?
Akers was 217. I think it's a really good size for Akers. 5'10", 3'8", 217.
We could spend the rest of this pod just talking about Cam Akers. I'm totally fine with that.
I am too.
I'm straight with that too.
Like I said this a lot. I said this about a month ago. Whenever we had Travis May on, and when we first did the running backs one, and he reminds me of Aaron Jones. Like when I sat there and watched him and watched his tape and everything, and if a team like, for example, because I feel like if the Chiefs actually it doesn't matter where they draft a running back. If they draft a running back in the 6th round, 5th round, I feel like that whoever that player is could end up being
Darwin Thompson.
But maybe someone with a little bit more pedigree than that. But if let's say the Chiefs took Cam Akers in the 3rd or 4th round, if that's where it was, does he become the instant 101?
I think it's possible. I think the landing spots are Indianapolis, Atlanta.
Tampa.
Yeah, exactly. These, and I think it all changes when that happens. I think it really does. Like I said, all top 5 guys. I'm probably not going to include Edwards-Helaire in that for me, but the Dobbins, Akers, Swift, and Taylor. I think it's all going to come down to landing spots, like you said in the very beginning.
Atlanta and Tampa are the 2 spots that I think he kind of fits. Arians was talking about having a guy that can play in all phases of the game. I think that's fully Akers, man. I think that. I think he's a 3-down back. I think anybody not given full context to how just oh my gosh, man. If you watch Florida State, just the and everybody talks about the offensive line. The entire that entire offense is terrible. It's not just the O-line was bad. The quarterback play, the receivers are garbage. Everybody around this dude.
Tamari and Terry, though.
I was going to say, Terry's a nice player. He's going to be a nice asset next year in 2021 for sure.
Dude, I love Akers. I think he plays well. I think he can pass protect. I was talking about this earlier on Twitter.
I think he was probably close to that 210, 212 range is what he played at. And dude, he's not afraid to lower his shoulder, run over guys. He'll get physical. He'll get in your face. I really don't think there's anything too much to not like. I saw somebody posted a clip today and said that based on this one clip that he wasn't going to be a 3-down back because he didn't take like a certain lane or something that I can't remember who. Did you see what I was talking about? Did you see that?
Yeah, I commented on it a little bit. Like I'm not I mean I'll plant some flags on guys and stuff like that. I mean guys that I just for me I'm not going to get all up in the fighting about prospects, but I mean I think good conversations can be had, and I didn't see the same things when I watched Akers. Actually, I thought he was pretty good in pass protection. Considering, I mean, that offensive line is allowing free rushers constantly. So dude got his chops and his reps in pass pro. I was happy with how he held up. And everybody that talks about 4.9 yards per carry, get the hell out of here. He got 3.9 of that after contact. So give some context to the situation that man was in. He's a 5-star prospect, and I put out J.K. Dobbins, his testing things and stuff like that. And then I try to throw context to it on Twitter, and everybody's like just loving all the J.K. Dobbins, and they're totally glossing over the fact in the same competition, Akers was third. And I just don't think that this dude gets enough love for how damn good he is, considering especially situation.
Well, and we'll get to wide receivers here in a second, but it's something similar to like a Jalen Reagor, right? But he's not getting the same hate because of it. But because of his production isn't on the same level as some of these other guys. But there's no context behind it. Or people try to extrapolate things to fit their narrative of what's happening, right? Like people are like, oh, well, yeah, he ran behind a bad offensive line, but there's more to it than that. I'm like, okay, well, what is it? And they're not really giving a ton of context as to why. Or, oh, well, he only ran well against bad defenses. Well, of course. Well, if you're playing a team with a great defensive line and they're penetrating the backfield every time, he can never get anything going. What do you think is going to happen? Like it doesn't take a lot to figure that out and understand that. And I think it might have been Travis May. I can't remember who it was that put something out that like nearly of every game that he charted of his, almost every single carry he had, there was a guy in the backfield. So is either negative or 0 yards whenever at first contact. Like, what do you think the guy's going to do? Like it's impressive that he was even able to do anything at all. So I think a lot of it's overblown with him, and I think people are just trying to find things to nitpick about him. But I think he's solid for me in the top 4, and wherever you want to have him is fine. But I think in the right landing spot, like I said, like I feel like there is a possibility of the Chiefs, because like the Chiefs don't have a ton of holes, right? Like they're a team that we know what they have at running back, and I think everybody expects them to go early on running back, but I think it's far more likely they go wide receiver. They need help at defensive back big time because Rashad Breeland and Kendall Fuller are both free agents. They're probably not going to bring them back. They need help at linebacker. But other than that, they don't have like a bunch of holes for this heading into the upcoming year. So I think they can get more aggressive and kind of do what they did last year with McCole Hardman, and they could take maybe trade back into the second and get an extra second or something like that. And I feel like they could take like I wouldn't shock if they took a Jalen Reagor or something like that, depending on where he goes. I think he probably goes in the first, probably 2 wouldn't have a shot at him. But then in the 3rd, 4th round, they could turn right back around and take a running back. But I feel like it's probably more likely that they take one in the 4th or the 5th, the 6th round. But regardless, I feel like whoever that is, because everybody hates Damian Williams, and the people that hated Damian Williams are still going to hate Damian Williams this year. And whoever they take, I think that player is going to be maybe even overvalued depending on who it is.
I just want to say one thing before we move on to the wide receivers. I think situation really matters. So if you were to take Taylor and Akers and switch teams, and we would be having a completely different conversation. Cam Akers would probably be the undisputed number 1. Taylor had a dominator rating of 35, and I'm not like a huge analytics guy. I'm more of a film guy. And Akers had a 12% dominator rating. If you take those guys and you flip the teams for the last 2 years, we'd probably be having a completely different situation. So when I look at tape, I'm more of a film guy than an analytics guy. Context matters and situation matters, and you kind of have to understand what these players who they're, what teams they're involved with, the offensive scheme, and take that into consideration when you're really kind of making final grades for these guys.
Brandon, you're tickling my fancy here. I really got to throw this at you. If you think if we switch, we're talking about switching spots here. if you took Swift and put him on Florida State, would he even be in their top 5 right now? I don't think he would.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good hypothetical to at least have a discussion. So, like you said, Derek, I mean, I don't really have ranks. I have more tiers because it all has to be taken into context for me. You know, a lot goes into these final ranks, and this is all just a lot of good fun that we're all having here.
Brandon, do you before we jump over receiver, do you have any deeper guys that you like? Any late round guys or guys that you think might be sleepers? Like I like Darius Anderson out of TCU is one of my guys. I like him as a late round target.
Yeah, you know, I guess the one guy that on the deeper end would be Anthony McFarland. I think has some ability. You know, on average, it looks like about 23 running backs are usually drafted. And if you go back and look at history since 2000, just under 10 are drafted in the first 4 rounds. And odds are, if you're drafted in the first 4 rounds of the NFL draft, that draft capital, that matters, right? So if you go back and again look at history for rounds 5 through 7, those guys typically don't get on the field. There's been some outliers like Chris Carson, Aaron Jones that were drafted late. So if the average stays the average, and the NFL drafts 10 running backs, I think Anthony McFarland is in there. Benjamin maybe had some splash last year. I just don't, I think other than top 5 or 6, I think from a dynasty asset, and, in my Debbie podcast that I talk about, that's what I focus on looking for, is the guys that can be consistently put in your dynasty roster. So to answer your question, I got probably Anthony McFarland. And that's probably about it. I think all the other guys are going to be just average guys that are not going to be on our rosters going into our daily fantasy lineups. Wide receivers, a whole different story, but running backs, I think it's top heavy. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, that is a great transition. Let's jump over to the wide receivers, right? This is the good spot. This is the nut spot, right? When it comes to wide receivers, you have Jerry Jeudy, you have CeeDee Lamb, you have Jalen Reagor. Some people enjoy themselves some Henry Ruggs, not so much for me. But this to me, I think the wide receiver is kind of the crown jewel of this class, and is very deep. There's a lot of. I think there's guys that you could put in certain situations and stuff like that, or put them into boxes. Maybe a slot wide receivers. You have some guys that are just typical deep threat guys. But I think the main question is it CeeDee Lamb or is it Jerry Jeudy? And if you're a Jerry Jeudy guy, has the love for Jerry Jeudy or the hate for Jerry Jeudy gone too far? Because there's people now that put him at 7 and 8, and it's funny. Because it was all about his BMI, right? Before he went in and got measured and everything, because that's what it was all about. His BMI is going to be terrible. Looking at the guys with low BMI and everything else, and CeeDee Lamb is going to be a monster. And now they weigh in and they're almost identical. I think they're like the same height, and they're 4 or 5 pounds different in terms of weight. And it's like, now what? Like, now what do you got to say? Because people didn't really talk about that. I didn't see a whole lot of Twitter of people like, oh, well, shit, like maybe we messed up on this one, right? Like because a lot of people had CeeDee Lamb at like 6'3", and now like he's 6'1", about the same height, same size. I think their games are a little bit different and stuff like that. But so many people were anti Jerry Jeudy because of his BMI, and now all of a sudden we got something else to say.
I think people were surprised by the size and stuff difference too because of play styles. I think you kind of touched on that, Kev. I have CeeDee Lamb over Jeudy right now. I'm still early on my wide receivers. I like both of them. I really don't have a lot of problems with either one of them. I think you look at performance, you look at early production from college, breakout ages, things like that. They all check all the boxes. I think what puts Lamb over Jeudy for me, it has nothing to do with size. It has everything to do with some of the skill set for me. I think that Jeudy is a guy that I have a few more questions about his translation in the NFL and landing spot that I don't have as much with Lamb, only in the sense that Jerry Jeudy, in every single year that he played with Alabama, some of this is usage and some of this I think harkens to skill set. because they do have a good coaching staff there. The guy played more in the slot than he did out wide every single season, and it wasn't even close. And so while I think that when you're looking at transition for wide receivers, I think the guys that can win both in the slot and out wide are going to have a little bit easier spot and not so landing spot dependent. So I have a few more questions about Judy with that than I do with Lamb. So that's the differentiation for me. But I like both of the guys. I'm not going to throw shade at either one of them. They check a lot of boxes. They both have really good skill sets for what they do. I think that's just me splitting hairs with the top two guys.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think if you're lucky enough to be in a rookie draft where you got the first, second, third, fourth pick and you can grab one of those guys, go for it. Half of us that are talking about it, we're not going to have the opportunity to even draft them in upcoming rookie drafts because we're not going to be in a position to.
Yep.
I'd take either one of them if they're there.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I just found it funny when all this happened. But the other one for me, and like I've already kind of discussed, is Jalen Reagor, and I think he deserves to be in the conversation with those guys. I absolutely love Jalen Reagor, and I think that he is like I was talking about earlier. Somebody, if you just look at his raw stats and you look at kind of that, and you're like, oh man, this guy didn't really produce that much, but he was in a terrible offense, and that was what held him back more than anything. You go back and look at his tape, like this dude is absolutely explosive. He likely runs in the 4.3. I think he could come somewhat close to, and I think if you look at his measurables, I think he could actually in terms of just his athleticism. I think he can beat Lamb and Judy in both of those things. And in the right offense, like I think that this dude could actually be, at least early on, the best wide receiver prospect of this class, depending on where he lands and stuff like that. Because like I said, like if he landed in Kansas City, which I doubt that happens, I think he's a day one prospect, and I think he ends up going earlier than what that would happen with. But I think certain teams, like a Green Bay, for example, or even a Philly, I think would be a great landing spot for a team that needs a wide receiver. And so, like, I love Jalen Reagor, and I think he definitely deserves. He should be a lock for everybody. But I know people's rankings are going to be all over the place when it comes to these things because a lot of this stuff is subjective of where you think people are. But it's just crazy to me because a lot of people have like Henry Ruggs at 3 or 2 or 1. And I'm like, what is going on here with this? Like, I get he's fast. And the crazy thing is when Henry Ruggs goes out and does his 40 and he runs a 4.25 or 4.27, people are going to be like, wide receiver 1, let's move him up. You move him up your rankings. I'm like, we already knew he was fast. You shouldn't be moving him up your rankings just because he's fast. We already knew that. You're not breaking any new ground. And that's the one thing that's going to happen the most out of this with some people is that they're going to reward people for stuff that we already knew. Like, it's not shocking. The only way you should be doing is moving people down your rankings because maybe they're not as athletic as you thought or they're not testing as well as what you thought they would be. You should never be moving guys up your rankings because of this, especially guys that we already had up and we already knew that Jalen Reagor was fast. Like that or not Jalen Reagor, but Henry Ruggs. But I cannot understand the Henry Ruggs love. I watched him. I see it. I see that he's fast. But is he Ted Ginn? Is that who he's going to end up being? Like, I know people try to comp him to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's a unicorn. He's not like everybody else. And to try to comp him to Tyreek Hill, I think is ludicrous.
You're preaching my soul there, Kev. I can't disagree, man. I mean, but let's get into this. I mean, when something's so nice, don't you want to count it twice? I mean, come on, like. That's what a lot of people are going to do. They're going to take that and they're going to say, he's fast. He's so fast. Like, I don't get it, man. Like, I think that there is something to the fact that the constant argument of why did not Ruggs not, why was he the third option? I think that, yes, there is certain context to the guys that he played with, but if he's that damn good and he's the first round talent and stuff like that, then why was he not getting more targets than the other two? I think that you could talk about roles in the offense, and like I just talked about Judy being a slot guy and things like that. That is there's an argument for that. And was he playing a certain role? I like Ruggs. I don't love him. I think Reagor is hands down a better wide receiver than him at this stage of the game right now. I think that you're looking at comparables in speed, but as far as skill sets, it's not close for me. I think that Rager, like, I can't even watch, and I put stuff out on Twitter today about him. I can't even watch 2019. It's so freaking bad. I mean, the quarterback play is just atrocious. Like, if you watch one or two games, you understand why this guy got squashed. I mean, the ball placement, all the quarterback play, just the offense in general. Like, I'm watching this film just to watch Rager, and I'm like, this is a hard watch. Like, anything 2019 with him is a hard watch because the team around him, it just is horrible. It's like watching Akers but wide receiver. And so you go back to 2018, the guy balled out versus good competition. He almost went for 100 versus Ohio State, got open regularly versus them. A lot of people make a lot of out of the drops and things like that. Yeah, did he have some concentration drops? Yes, I'm not going to dispute that. But this dude also made a lot of tight window contested catches as well. Like, if you go and you watch the games versus Ohio State, you watch versus West Virginia, both top 10 programs, he lit both of them up. I mean, he had a solid game versus Ohio State. He lit West Virginia on fire. The guy, when he had at least competent quarterback play, I mean, he's had 3, maybe 4 off the top of my head quarterbacks that threw to him in the last 2 years. And so adding that on top of the fact that none of those quarterbacks were good, much less maybe passable. I mean, it just, from ball placement, things like that, this dude made adjustments on the fly and made some spectacular types of catches because of how bad the quarterback play was. So if you go back to 2018, he checks all the measurable boxes. He's fast as hell. He can get open on the outside. I think that he's a guy that I love him as a prospect. If he was in any other class, could he threaten to be that number one guy? Yeah, absolutely. I think the stat lines and the box scores do not do justice. If he'd have gone to a different program, I think that we'd be talking about him in the same context. Like, he's firmly going to be in my top 3.
Yeah, I'm going to just follow up with you, Derek. I did a full scouting report on him, and I do some work for the Dynasty Draft Room and put a video out on him. And I watched every one of his games, and you're absolutely right. There was 3 or 4 really bad passes in the end zone. I mean, his stats, he probably left 7, 8 touchdowns, on the field because of bad quarterback play. But if you really nitpick through that film, you are going to see a player who, you're absolutely right. The body control, the length, the go up and get the ball. He's got all the skill. He's a little shorter than Ruggs, but he's a little more physical, which is nice. He's got a little bit more meat to him. And I think that's the real big difference. Those two guys are both going to come in fast in the combine. And, I agree with you, Kevin. Everyone getting all hyped up tomorrow on Twitter. I probably am just going to turn it off because everyone's going to be in these. Aren't they running tomorrow at 4:00? All these 40 times. So, I mean, it's going to be like crazy on Twitter. But there was enough film this year that you could see that Jalen Reagor is going to be a player. And I am just going to make a call out to Howie Roseman for the Philadelphia Eagles. Please draft this man at number 21.
Woo! That would be beautiful. That would absolutely be beautiful.
Poor Carson Wentz, man. Get this goddamn man a playmaker.
Get him somebody that can actually freaking run. Like,
yes.
Get him a guy
from the NFL as well. That might help.
Oh my gosh.
And then in the 3rd round, I want him to pick Denzel Mims for a nice physical possession receiver who can move the chains. He's like one of my favorite guys in this class, Denzel Mims. I mean, I think he's underrated. He did a really good interview today on the Combine. But I think he's an underrated prospect that I think he's going to sneak into the 2nd round.
Arthega-Whiteside needs to die so Mims can live. I'm just
well, that's a conversation for another day, but I'm going to defend him because, hey, I watched all those Eagles games, all right? And that man never got balls thrown his way. Now, he may not have been able to get open on the field, but I fault the Eagles organization for not throwing that ball to Rock more to see what they have in him. So I got to give him another year or 2.
He was a second round pick, wasn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe the 3rd.
Let's get into some of those guys like Mims. He's also one of my favorites. Somebody like Isaiah Hodgins out of Oregon State. He's not getting too much love either, but he's a bigger guy in that same kind of mold who has some who has some good movement skills, especially for somebody his size. I'm also a fan of Michael Pittman. I mean, he weighed in at like 6'4", 223 or something. He's a big dude. He obviously he has a length with that frame, but he has some speed to his game as well. For you guys, outside of like that top 3, 4, 5, who are some names and maybe some like mid-tier kind of guys that you guys are looking at?
Brandon, I'll let you lead off here.
Yeah, no problem. I just mentioned this guy on my podcast this week. I did a really detailed, again, living in here, and I guess Cody, you got the Penn State cap on there, so let's talk about KJ Hamler for a minute, right? So I'm probably on an island. I'm on a bunch of Twitter groups with a bunch of guys and stuff, and I'm a firm believer that he should have stayed in school one more year, and not come out. And he's a guy that I'm questionable whether or not he can really. Yeah, he's fast. But again, is he going to be physical enough to win during his routes if he doesn't get off the line with press coverage? Is he going to be able to absorb the contact? If he gets the open releases and he gets down the field, he makes plays. But he's another guy who I'm really interested to see what his draft capital is going into this year and what team is going to take a shot on him. What are your guys' thoughts on KJ Hamler?
I think those are all fair points. I to be fair though, I have the same concerns with Ruggs. Like I've seen Ruggs, if he doesn't have that free release, if he has somebody on him, I've seen corners stick with him. You know what I mean? So like I have some of those same concerns. The one thing that I will say about Hamler is that I didn't understand at all. Whenever he weighed in, his measurements, his height and weight, they were super close to what he was listed at Penn State. But whenever like that was official for some reason, people lost their minds. Like people saw the measurements and they were just like, you know what? Never mind. That's it. I liked him on tape. He was electric with the ball in his hands, but he was actually as tall and as thin as they said he was at Penn. Like it normally doesn't work that way. You normally don't see guys like Hamler wasn't going to fucking weigh in at 6 foot 185. He came in close to what he was listed at. Then all of a sudden people were just like, no, you know what? Never mind. I liked him, but these numbers are actually correct. And I actually thought he was going to be 6'4", 220. And oh my God, the fact that he's 5'9", 178, I can't do it now. Like that does, like the same thing happened last year with Devin Singletary as well. He weighed in close to what his college listing was. And people were just like, you know what? Never mind. Not now.
Yeah, I think it all comes back to people double counting things. I think that if you liked him, then and considering that this should not have been a surprise to you, I think that he's a solid prospect. Then you shouldn't be moving him up, moving him down based off of what those results were. At least there wasn't any kind of push for me as far as that goes. Brandon, to your point, there are just certain players who are going to need help as far as like the scheme goes. Right. Yep. Like you're not going to want to put Hamler outside on an island facing press coverage and tell him to defeat that, 30 routes that he's running that game. That comes down to landing spot. What are they going to ask him to do? Are they going to accentuate it like his skill set? Are they going to put him like a guy like Hollywood Brown? Like people were talking about his size and stuff last year. Basically, does he go to a good team and a good coach, and do they do smart things like put him in spots to succeed? Or does he go to a bad team and they just put him in the same, the peg, the same box that they throw everybody into, and they're just like, all right, man, just figure it out. We understand you're tiny as hell, but we want to put you outside, and we're going to ask you to sit there and get off a press, although you probably didn't play a lot outside. You saw a lot of zone in college. This is a brand new skill. You're learning offense. You're learning all these different combinations. You don't have your own positional coach tell you what to do on the field, i.e., the Mayock clip. Like, all of these different things, like, that's why I think a lot of these landing spots, especially for people like him, like, that's where all of this we have to give context. Like, are they going to put him in spots that make sense for him to succeed? Or is it we're just going to do the Adam Gase thing and we're just going to throw you into just bad situations, not try to get the most out of you, because that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why would we do that, dear God? So I think a lot of these guys, that's really what it comes down to. What role do you see them fitting in an offense? Because not everybody is like a freaking T.Y. Hilton that is smaller, more slight, but he's good enough. He has moves, speed, short area quickness to win on the outside. So I think that comes into play for a lot of these prospects that are on the smaller side and depending on their skill sets.
No, I agree with that. Before we get to T. Higgins and Justin Jefferson, I wish I would have brought the lotion and the tissues in here because it's about to get real, boys. Like Brian Edwards. Can we talk about Brian Edwards? I'm so upset that he came in and broke his foot. Right? I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Because we were all excited. I was so excited to be able to get the questions out of the way. He's going to run a 4.4, and he's going to smash, and he is going to be the guy. Right? I love Brian Edwards, right? And then it happened. I'm like, why, God? What did I do to you? Like, what? Like, you know what I mean? But, like, maybe it's better, right? Because people and Dynasty rookie draft, stuff like that, are going to be able to get him at a better value because he's not going to shoot up. Maybe he falls a little bit in the draft because of the broken foot, and people don't get to see him. But I think the dude's a monster. And, like I talked about before, like he was clocked at 22.6 miles per hour this year in a game, which I think was the fastest of any wide receiver. The dude's got speed. I think it's ridiculous people think that he's slow. Like I love some Brian Edwards, and this was only thing I really wanted to talk about tonight. So now I got that off. I got that one out of the way because I love some Brian Edwards.
Now that Kev got off.
I'm a typical male. I'm off. Hey, I'm going to bed. Give me a cigarette. I'm out. Like.
He runs fast at his pro day because you got to have speed. Is he a guy that you're hoping falls to KC?
Oh God! You'd be.
He's got to have speed because Reed's not going to take him if he's slow. That's absolutely possible. But if he runs on the 4.4s, like you're saying, that's a spot where I think he could go late. Like and what they're going to ask him to do. I love Brian Edwards. You don't have to. I don't have to add a whole lot on top of that because I'm just going to be rehashing the same things. Dude produced from a young age. He was in a crap program.
17.
He's so good, man. It just things that are aligning. Now, what does that do to his draft stock? I think that you're going to have a team, if they liked him before, they're going to like him afterwards, as long as he doesn't like just bomb at his pro day. I think that that's the only thing. That as long as he doesn't face plant at his pro day, a team that's going to like him, I think that those things hurt his draft capital. Probably drops him around. Maybe 2, depending on if he would have gone and he'd have lit up the Senior Bowl, if he'd have done all these different things, lit up the combine and blown people away as versus just a pro day. I think that he's going to come at a discount for an NFL team, and it depends on how much do they love him. He's a guy that I think that could drop, but I think that you could see a team. I think it all, like we're talking about context. I think he's a guy that drops in the NFL draft, but you see a team probably trade up to come and get him. If that makes sense.
I can see
like
that.
They're going to look at him on the board in the 4th round and be like, wait, holy shit, is this real? Well, hold up. Double check that. Is Brian Edwards not drafted by anybody? All right, let's go.
I totally agree. I love some Brian Edwards. Love him. So we got that out of the way. I don't know what you're about to say about Brian Edwards, but I just want to get that part out. But
real quick, other than KC, are there any other spots that you guys would like to see him land? Like, I think he'd be kind of interesting in San Fran, although the volume might not be there. I mean, do they used him on like jet sweeps and stuff? You know what I mean? Like, I think if he could get with somebody like Shannon, he can get involved in different ways that might be interesting. Like I said, I think the issue with that would be volume. But are there any other spots? Because this seems to be a Brian Edwards friendly podcast. Is there any other spots that you guys like for him?
Green Bay, I think, is another spot that just basically Devontae Adams there.
Alan Lazard is there next. Move on. Let's keep Alan Lazard alive.
God.
Oh, if you have him, you got to sell. You got to sell if you got Adam Lazard. You got to sell.
I waited for Lazard and I waited for Auden Tate. Don't you dare take those things away from me.
I mean, I think other places that he could possibly land potentially would be like a Detroit. There's been some talk. I mean, there was talk last year about them trading Marvin Jones. I don't think they're going to pick up the contract of why is his name? Danny Amendola. So they may just have Kenny Golladay, at this point. So I think that's a potential spot that's going to be looking at wide receiver.
About New Orleans.
New Orleans, yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, they have my dude down there. That
I
can't see.
think, dude, I really wonder if New Orleans goes and gets Rager. Dear God in heaven, they need the speed element. They need somebody that can
So,
stretch the field.
No, don't take away my dream. I'm still hoping in the back of my mind to see somehow.
Two spots that I think could be interesting, because of depth of the position, and I think that if he falls, I think that Cleveland could make some sense. Because outside of Odell and Jarvis, they don't have a whole lot as far as pass catchers. I'm kind of curious about Minnesota. I think the Vikings can make some sense too.
Yeah, I mean, it's
They're both top heavy depth charts. Outside of their top two guys, he's a guy that can come in and fill a wide receiver 3 role, possibly year 1, and have some room to grow based off of contracts and ages and things of that nature with those teams.
Well, with Minnesota too, right? Like, there's a Stephon Diggs that he took all of his pictures off his Instagram. Like, that's the new thing now. Like 2020 or 2019.
Oh gosh,
we monitor their Instagrams, and if they take their pictures down, like something's happening, boys. Like I don't know. We'll see what happens. I know.
Or miscellaneous tweets, like if they just put out like some things and stuff that's going on, like he might be traded.
the eyeball, the eyeball emoji, like when they put that one out, like what's happening? But I don't know what they're going to do with Stephon Diggs in Minnesota. Like, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he wants out, and that's possible. That he's tired of being, kind of the 1A to 1B or 1B to 1A, whatever you want to call it, to Adam Thielen. But if they were to move on, they're definitely going to need a wide receiver because Adam Thielen's not getting any younger. He's 31, so I think that's also a spot that you could be looking anyway for a wide receiver. So yeah, I think there's plenty of spots out there that I think teams that are definitely going to need a wide. Denver is certainly another spot that probably could use another wide receiver. So even though they have Bashan Hamilton there, but they don't seem to love him as much as I do, so that's fine.
I mean, you could really make the argument that half the teams in the NFL need a quality
Arizona.
wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean Arizona certainly. So, and I think Arizona was actually what Kyler Murray's been working out with CeeDee Lamb, right? So people that made that a deal, right? So anyway.
I'm here for that though.
Oh yeah, I'm here for that too. I think that could definitely happen. I'm not sold that Christian Kirk is a 1. So
yeah, well, we'll see. I want to get to Laviska Shenault. Like, I think he is. I mean, what did he? 6'1", 227, something like that is what he ended up. The dude is jacked. Like, I think he could play running back if you wanted him to. I think he could play wide receiver if you wanted him to. Like, he is so fun to watch, but they just use him all over the place. Not necessarily a prolific offense that it came from, but where do you see him going? Do you think teams fall in love with him because of his skill set, because of his versatility, that you can use him all over the place? Do you think he turns out to be like a Percy Harvin type, Cordell Patterson type, or do you think he fits more into like a Deebo Samuel mold where, he plays that role, but he can also be utilized, out of the backfield like Deebo Samuel was this year with San Francisco?
I think he has to test well. I think he has to test well. If he doesn't test well, which I'm not saying that he's not going to, but if he doesn't test well, I think he's a guy that you could see fall off the map. I think considering his skill set, I like the guy. I think that, man, I think the range of outcomes for him is really, really wide. Maybe I'm off base there, but I think that he's got a lot of growing to do as far as like, from the position tactician, like route running and things of that nature. But Brandon, I'm curious your thoughts. I'm still early on Shenault, so I definitely I think there's some room as far as my evaluation of him goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. I mean, he's got that versatility. He's a bigger guy. I think the Deebo Samuel comp is a good one. I mean, they've moved him all over the formation in San Francisco. I mean, the injury concern, I think, is legit, though. I mean, if he has that soft tissue injury concern with the depth of this class, if I'm a GM and I'm sitting at the draft table and I've got, a guy like Brian Edwards and Laviska Shenault, I think he's going to have to go to an offense. I don't know if he's ever going to line up as a prototypical, X and Z receiver down the field. I think he's going to have to be one of those guys because, like you said, I don't know from a technical route running standpoint if he's got all the refinement that's required on the ends to run those routes where they just might have to put him in motion a lot, the wildcat, all the stuff we've seen on film. I think he's going to have a team that's, maybe already has a really legit number one wide receiver, and they're going to use him and take him as a luxury pick and say, you know what, we've got the coaching staff that we can move this guy around the formation and get him the ball and maybe not overuse him, until he really gets healthy and they figure out what they have in him.
I just think that he's going to need to get some. I think he's going to need to test well to get capital, to fall into a spot where he gets opportunity, and they let him, like, he basically has the opportunity to learn on the fly and to grow. I think that he's a guy that could easily get pigeonholed into a gadget or a specialty role. I think he's a guy that we could be just staring at. He's this year's less sexy Cordell Patterson. I think it is a possibility. Do I think that it is a definitive? No. I think that there's a really wide range of outcomes, but I think that that's definitely a possibility for him.
Yeah, for me, I think the Patterson's a lazy comp. That's what everyone's using.
No, agreed.
Agreed. And it's just,
I think he's better than Patterson.
I do too. I do too. I mean, he's got a special skill set for his size. I mean, his yak ability with the ball in his hand, running down the field. He's a monster. He's a bitch to get on the field or get on the ground rather. There's no doubt a team is going to, and on your point, Derek, if he doesn't test well in the combine, he might fall in the draft. But I think a team, if he falls to the late second, they're going to be so enamored with the intrigue and possibility of what he could be. I think it's going to be too tempting for teams to pass on.
Yeah, he's on the opposite side of the body composition spectrum of KJ Hamler, but falls into the same bucket of he's going to need a good landing spot. Like Derek, you were saying that his range of outcomes can be so wide, and I think that's because if he lands somewhere that's going to try and pigeonhole him, he's not going to have the same fantasy upside as he would if he was with a more creative offense.
Yeah, I think it comes down to coaching staff. Are they going to put him in a spot to do? I think that he's a guy that could definitively surprise. It kind of like we were all like going back and forth on a guy like DK Metcalf last year. I think that Shenault is a guy that, like DK, I think that could surprise the hell out of some people if he ends up on a team. I'm not saying he's like DK. What I'm saying is that if he ends up on a team that says, okay, these are the things that you do well, we are going to accentuate what the hell you do well. Could he blow up in year one? Absolutely. I could also see him getting buried.
Kev, you brought up Justin Jefferson. Does it scare you all that he somehow shrunk 2 inches from the end of the college season until the combine measurements?
Yeah, he's another guy, right, that was listed at what, 6'3".
Kevin's not worried about shrinkage. Let's just throw it out there.
Hey, I'm a grower, not a shower, okay? Let's be honest.
Don't add water.
It's cold out, damn it. But man, this has been great. But yeah, I memean, I think him and I think T. Higgins are a lot of people's 4 and 5, maybe 6 in those range for those two. I think they were well. I think a lot of people thought Justin Jefferson was going to be much bigger and that he was going to be much more of maybe even play like that big slot because that's kind of what they asked him to do at LSU. But I think Jefferson is fine. I think he's a great prospect. I think he's somebody, again, landing spot dependent of where he goes. But I think I like him. And T. Higgins is another dude that I'm interested to see how he tests because he tested horribly coming out of high school. I think that he can be a little more athletic than that now. He's great. He's grown a little bit. But I think T. Higgins, he ran like a 4.7, I think it was, coming out of high school.
Yeah, man, Jefferson.
Yeah. So they're going to be very dependent on what they run and what they can do. I do think that Jefferson can be somebody who is – I think he has the ability to play the outside, to play that X, but I think that he may end up being more like a Keenan Allen type where he plays on the inside, and that's kind of what teams ask him to do. But again, I think both these guys are great prospects. I don't think they have some of the same skill sets that some of these other dudes a little bit higher than they have, and maybe they don't have the same ceiling as some of these guys do. But I think each one of them, Jefferson and T. Higgins, both can definitely fill a role very nicely and be Maybe they're never, wide receiver ones, but maybe more wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 types.
I like Jefferson a lot. I think that he needs to go to a spot where when I watched just watching Burrow the other day real quick, Jefferson in the slot. Yeah, I mean it's a thing that's been talked about a whole lot. Brady did a lot of really good things. They did a lot of rubber outs, things like that to kind of get him in space, and you just see him wide open. And it's the big question of how did he get that wide open? Do I think that he can succeed on the outside? I think that Keenan Allen is a really good as far as a tactician spot, and as far as what he probably gets around for testing. And I know we've thrown this out, but I think as far as like fit in the offense, where he could profile and do well, I think Green Bay is a good spot for him. I think that he can be what they wanted, but he's just not good enough to be. I think he could be what they wanted Geronimo Allison to be. I think that he could be that big slot type of guy because we've seen Devontae could win on the outside. They'll run him into the slot if they have to. But I think Jefferson is a guy from a skill set standpoint that I think has got some polish to his game. I think that he's going to translate well. Now, does he have like the ceiling that some of these other prospects do? No, I don't think that's probably the case. I think that from a physical standpoint, unless he lands in a spot that's going to run him as the big slot, does he see his ceiling capped? Probably. But is he going to be that guy that comes in, produces year one based off of his skill set, his polish, what he's asked to do? And can he be that 806, 805 guy yearly? Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, I like him a lot as a prospect. I don't know if the ceiling's there for him, but like a spot like the Packers, and considering what he could bring to the table, I think it'd be a really, really good spot for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'll chime in here. I would agree with you. I think he's got to be limited to the slot, to create space for himself. I think he goes to an offense that has a number one receiver already, and it'll be a great complementary piece. So, I mean, his production this year was just incredible. I mean, everybody on that LSU team was incredible. I mean, everybody who touched the damn ball, even Thaddeus Moss. I mean, the guy didn't do much before last year produced. So, he's good. He's a skilled player, and some team. I think he's definitely in the. I've seen him in a lot of mock drafts in the first round. So, no reason he shouldn't go there.
And I see a lot of mocks, a lot of people mocking him to the Saints, and I don't understand that at all. Like from a skill set standpoint, I don't get that. Like you're basically doubling down on the same skill set as Michael Thomas. Like as what he does well. I don't think that's what that offense needs. I don't understand anybody mocking him to the Saints. I don't even understand anybody mocking him to the Eagles. I don't really, unless they're just throwing in the towel on Whiteside. Like if they're looking to fill a role, that's not what I think that offense needs. So I think Green Bay is a good spot. I think if Arizona wants to wait on a guy that they think can play inside, I think that's another good spot for him.
What about Detroit?
I think Detroit's good. I think that's definitively a spot. I also, you know what? Screw it. I'll throw out the Ravens. I think the Ravens are a good spot as far as skill set goes, as to where he could land and play well, because there's not another guy on that roster that would kind of fill the same role that he could play.
Now that you say Baltimore, I like Denzel Mims in Baltimore. Now that you brought up that team. Like someone with a different skill set, play on the outside. They already have the field stretcher. They already have, the two tight ends kind of in the middle of the field playing the seam. So I like Mims to Baltimore.
What about like Buffalo? I think Buffalo, with basically just having John Brown. I mean, who else do they really? I mean, Cole Beasley, I guess, that they have there that plays the slot, but I don't know. I think the Bills are certainly a team that needs a wide receiver. They need to put talent around Josh Allen. I mean, they made the playoffs this year with John Brown and Cole Beasley as their best wide receivers. So I think that's also a spot that a team that's definitely gonna be looking for a wide receiver, and probably early.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they need to go with a guy that has the skill set to win outside. Personally,
right? No, yeah. I agree with that.
I don't know. I mean, I could see Buffalo getting aggressive and going for CD. I could see that could be a spot for him. Brown is not a prototypical one. Could they transition Brown to get some more slot time this year? Because they did it with some of the matchups they had this year. They rolled into the slot on some weeks, depending on cornerback matchups. Could that be a spot that where they trade up and they get aggressive for a guy that they view as the number one in their offense, or at least their future number one? Yeah, I've seen T. Higgins go there a whole lot. I don't really. Yeah. I don't know if I. Maybe. I think T. Higgins is the fallback. I'd like to see them move up for CeeDee Lamb personally, but that's just me.
Yeah, Higgins and Chenault have been the two most common names I've seen.
Yeah, I don't get the Chenault thing. I don't get that.
Yeah, I agree. If you guys don't mind me asking, what are your thoughts on AGG? I mean, on Twitter today, I saw again a lot of guys putting ranks out and in the top 5, 6.
It's too rich for me.
Yeah,
he's not gonna garner the draft capital to get that type of opportunity. I think he's a guy that draft Twitter is going to love, and has loved. But I think he's going to be a late round guy. I think he easily could be a UDFA guy. The NFL doesn't take too kindly a lot of how many guys do we see come out of these ridiculously small schools and get any kind of draft capital tied to them? I mean, it's really, really that's fair. That's fair. But I don't think
Corey Davis had games against Wisconsin and some of those where you could look at Cooper
Kupp, right? Cooper Kupp was another one. He came from a really small school.
Yeah.
Yep, that's fair. I don't know, man. I don't dislike Andy Golden, but I don't know. I'm not as in love with him as a lot of other people. I think he did good versus the competition level. I think that a team's gonna have to fall in love with him for him to really be anything at the NFL level for me.
I think the thing that concerned me most, like you said, against the competition he played, he has a dominator rating, he has the stats and everything, but you didn't see him create much separation against the corners he was facing at that level. How's he going to fare at the NFL level? I mean, I guess if he goes someplace with a quarterback that's going to be willing to throw into tight spaces and just throw jump balls for him, because he obviously excelled at that. Jump balls, the back shoulder tosses, things like that. He was really good, borderline again against the competition he was up against, borderline unstoppable with that. But I mean, if he struggled to create that separation against Colgate and colleges like that, how's he going to do at the NFL level against legit ones even third corners in the NFL are going to be better than the corners he was facing at Liberty.
I could be off with this one, but Gandy Golden reminded me of the way I look at kind of Auden Tate. He makes the most routine catches look amazing because that's literally what he has to do. Because he can't separate. I think Gandy Golden's my Auden Tate guy. I don't know, man. I don't see the separation there for him. Like you're talking about. Could it be a guy that falls into a team? I think he's going to have to fall into a team that he just with injuries and stuff, he's going to get fed volume. But I don't know if he gets the capital to get that volume and that opportunity. I think he's a guy that we could be looking at in a year or two, and everybody is doing draft, doing Twitter searches and saying, "What the hell happened to this dude? Where did he go? Who's he with? He got cut and signed by who?"
Yeah. So I don't think we can get off the podcast without at least talking about Tyler Johnson. I think he's another dude that is very kind of people don't really know what to make of him. I think that he is a dominant prospect or somebody that had big numbers in college. And I think that he is just a route technician, somebody who I think can run every route in the route tree. But I think there's been concerns with him about his athleticism and how is he actually going to test. And I think if he tests really well, then I think he's somebody that could end up moving up people's boards. Where do you guys land on Tyler Johnson? Because I think he's kind of the guy that I think everybody likes, but he's just kind of the tweener where he's just kind of in the middle for everybody, where no one really loves him, but no one hates him either.
Didn't he just pull out of the combine?
He's not gonna do any.
He's not. Yeah, he's gonna do it at his pro day. Yeah.
I don't know. I think the fact that he pulled out of the Senior Bowl and he pulled out of the Shrine Game. I'm sorry. Yeah. To me, it's red flags. I mean, I don't know what the issue is. You're absolutely right. I mean, he's a skilled player, certainly dominated at on the field, but I don't know. This is the pinnacle of his life right here, right? I mean, this is a guy who's worked his whole life to become an NFL player, and then you skip a game, and then the combine you pull out right beforehand. I don't know. That's a red flag for me. I think
well, I mean, because we've seen it before, right? We've seen it more recently too with guys that know, I think, that have an idea that they maybe they're not test as well, and not go and pull like Laquan Treadwell or some of these other guys who decide to go out and run everything and run like 4.7s. So maybe he's trying to protect himself a little bit against that, but. So I guess I somewhat understand why he's going to do it, because obviously we know at pro days that you tend to get about a couple tenths of a second faster than what you would at at the combine.
Yeah, and I guess to me, I mean, the combine is such a great opportunity for you to meet with coaches, for these coaches to understand the intangibles of these players, of which we know nothing about, their work ethic, their smarts and all that stuff. I mean, so much of that, like Mike Mayock said, to your point, Derek, how much of that goes into it, just pulling out right beforehand to continue to train for your pro day. To me, if I'm an NFL owner, that's a red flag for me.
He's still going to be there, right? I mean, he's still there, and there's just a couple of the drills he's not going to do, correct?
I heard. Okay, that's the case, but
yeah, he's just not going to do the athletic testing. And actually, Thor Nystrom asked him the question at the combine of, do you think that sends the wrong message to NFL teams? Like, do you think you're making a mistake by doing this because you pulled out of the Shrine Game because you said you were going to be preparing for the combine? Now we're at the combine, and now you're saying you're waiting until your pro day. And he basically just said that he gets one shot to prove this. So like he was just saying that like he wasn't 100% comfortable with like some of the techniques and everything used at, for the 40 and the 3 cone and things like that. So I don't know. To me, it does scare me a little bit, the fact that he like didn't even get the Senior Bowl invite, like forget not going to the Shrine Game. The fact that someone with his stats, and I mean, he dominated last year. He had that absurd dominator rating. And then this year, Brandon, one of the hot Debbie names, Rashad Bateman, he still put up a 38% dominator with Bateman there as well. And the fact that he didn't get the Senior Bowl invite, and now that he's, backing out of the combine, like the combine testing and stuff, and then we're hearing the whispers of, possibly off-field issues. I mean, it's so hard to know what's really going on with all that. We were doing just kind of like a Twitter mock with the Dynasty Happy Hour, and I got him at 212 in a one quarterback like rookie mock.
Right.
He fell all the way to 212. And it was just one of those things where it was like, could he completely fall to the 4th, 5th round? Sure. Could he be a day 3 prospect? I guess. But based on the information that, us Joe Schmoes have, I'm not going to pass on a guy at that point with what he did, his production. Is he the most athletic guy? No. But he's a technician. And if you can get open in the NFL, if you can create separation, you're going to get targets.
Yeah.
I think that kind of speaks to nobody knows what the hell to do with him, because they don't know what's going on with him right now. Like, I think that speaks to the value, but like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm going to take the other side of this coin a little bit. Like, I think that there's a lot of ways that you could read this. I think that, he didn't get the invite to the Senior Bowl and stuff like that, but I mean, he has no control over that, What he does have control over right now is the ability of what he does and what he shows teams at the combine. Is he there? Yeah. Can he interview? Yeah. In that sense, to me, that says a guy that I think that he's there. There's a possibility in all of this that he's being honest with himself. Like, he's seen the times, he's tested himself. He knows that where he's going to fall. Is that a guy that, considering all of these other things, needs to kind of smash sometimes, or that he's going to need some help, like we're talking about with pro days. If he already understands that, I mean, kudos to him. Like, get your speed work in, son. Like, get your speed work in. Try to run what you need to run to help yourself with NFL teams and with the draft and stuff like that. So, I don't know. He's a guy that I think that we could be surprised based off of what he runs at his pro day, in the sense that has he been behind the scenes working on with speed coaches and stuff like that? Sure. Or is he going to run what he needs to run to not like absolutely just leave himself without a pulse going into the NFL draft? Sure. I think could be a case of a guy helping himself more than hurting himself, considering one of some of the cards that he's been dealt. Like, he can't do anything about not getting the Senior Bowl invite. What he can do to help himself is work on his speed game and work on the things that he can do with the stopwatch to not totally just like trash himself. And is part of that him sitting out the combine to sit here and say, all right, I've got to drop some weight. Okay, I need to work on some agility stuff. So I give myself the best chance to show teams that if I do get the work in and concentrate on these things, can I put it down on paper or with the clock to give myself the best chance to land in a good spot. So I don't know.
Yeah, I guess for me, he's had the last year to get ready for the combine. So what's the pro day? 30 days out, something like that. I mean, when do pro days typically take place after the combine?
Depends.
I think teams will start lining them up in like March, mid-March, and then it just kind of rolls.
Yeah, all right. So he's got like 2 weeks. I mean, is that really going to make a difference?
But
it depends on when Minnesota's pro day is.
And it also depends on what he's been doing for the entire, since the collegiate season ended.
Yeah.
So this will be one of those things where the NFL draft is going to tell us everything we need to know. Exactly. If he falls to late day 3, then maybe what I mean. Like, let's say he goes out and he has a good enough pro day. If he falls to late day 3, then maybe there was some some legitimacy to the off the field issues. And if he goes before that, if he's like I don't know, maybe mid round 3 kind of pick, something like that, then a lot of this stuff is overblown. So we're gonna learn a lot more at the end of April.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen guys at his size that aren't most athletic, be able to do something. I mean, look at Anquan Bolden. Anquan Bolden was 6'1", 220, ran a 4.7. I mean, it's not the end all be all, but I guess we'll see with him. So, I mean, I just thought he's kind of an interesting prospect, and I think for most people they have him in that 9 to 12 range, but I just don't think people really, feel conviction one way or the other with him. So, is there anybody else you guys want to talk about, a sleeper that you guys are watching to kind of see how after the combine that people really weren't expecting or didn't really know a lot about? Is there anybody like that at this wide receiver position, or have we pretty much hit on the guys we want to hit on?
I'm going to throw one name out there that nobody's talking about at all is KJ Hill from Ohio State. As a deeper play. I mean, I thought he was an excellent route runner this year, and from the film that I watched, there's like nobody talking about him at all. And I think he had a productive career in college, and I liked what I saw. So I'm very interested to see. Again, he's a middle round guy, but I'm interested to see where he lands and what he can do in the NFL. And the other guy I just did a video on was Van Jefferson, who, smaller guy, I think is another kind of slot, versatile guy. He lined up all over the field for Florida this year. He's not going to kill you with great long speed. He's a little short in the size and athleticism, but I think he's a really technical route runner, and his father being an NFL player for 13 years and the coach of the Jets right now. It'd be really interesting to see if he lands with the Jets.
I like the KJ Hill call. I've been kind of a big low-key fan of what Brian Hartline there, the wide receiver coach, has been doing with the wide receivers. I think some of these guys are coming out with better route running chops than some of the other schools. I don't think that based off of their offenses and things of that nature that they've been, popping with breakout ages and dominators, but you see some of these guys succeeding and doing well at the NFL level from our early standpoint. I mean, we have McLaurin, we have Curtis Samuel's done some stuff. I'm blanking on some other names, but I think that there's some substance to that. I think that, learning different nuances to your game, I like KJ Hill a lot. And I'd be very curious to where he ends up. He's probably going to be on a lot of my Dynasty squads.
There's that Michael Thomas guy.
Yeah, he good. He good too.
You remember way back when there was, what Matt Kelly called him, the bad Michael Thomas, and then the other, Michael Thomas that I think he might still be in the league. I'm not sure, but I called him the bad Michael Thomas. That's funny. We all have bad takes, but I'd always remember that one. So, anyways, yeah. Anybody else got? You have one? Do you have one there? Hedge life that you're not going to hedge on?
I mean, it's hedge life, baby. So this could go either way. I mean, he might be really good. He might suck. I don't know. I'm going to hedge all up and down the field on this one. But Marquez Callaway is a name I'll be paying attention to out of Tennessee. I knew he was a speed guy, but then he weighed in at like 6'1", 205 or something, and I wasn't really expecting that. So if he can run a solid 40, if he can get some draft capital, that would be a guy who I'm going to be keeping tabs on from now until the end of April, just to see what kind of capital he gets and how he does with the athletic testing. You want to talk about programs that were just in complete disarray, like Florida State? Look no further than the Tennessee Volunteers.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of other wide receivers. We could sit here and talk about this for hours and hours because you have Devin Duvernay, you have Brandon Ayuk that we didn't talk about.
Yeah, we didn't even mention those guys.
I mean, there's all kinds of players in this wide receiver class is going to be very deep. So, again, I think we've already hit on it enough that do not double count stuff. If a guy goes out and does what you think he's going to do, don't all of a sudden move him up your rankings just because of it. That's ridiculous. And take some of this stuff with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, like we said, all it really matters is landing spot. You can think a guy is as great as you want, but if NFL teams don't agree with you and he goes in the 7th round, doesn't matter. So
or if he lands on the Jets, fade.
Or the Jets, yeah, or the Jets.
Absolutely.
So sad because I like some of the weapons they have there and some of the pieces they have on that team, and they're going to ruin it. They're going to let Adam Gase run it all to the ground. They're going to let Robbie Anderson go, and
Adam Gase is a soul-squashing turd.
Yeah, Jamison Crowder's going to get like 600 targets this year, so he's firing him up in DFS this year because he's going to be the nuts every week. So
with an ADOT of 2.4.
So he's going to be he
catches 10 balls. I don't care about that ADOT, baby.
He's the Jarvis Landry in Miami of the Jets. So
out routes for days, son.
Yeah, so I don't get that stuff. So, anyways, I really appreciate you guys coming on. I know we stayed a little bit later. We wanted to there, Derek. I know some people have to work around here, but but I appreciate you guys coming on. It was a lot of fun. We talked a little bit too much about, I don't know, maybe it wasn't enough. Maybe, I don't know, we could go either way on how much sexual innuendos we had on this podcast, but I think it was worth it.
I appreciate the invite, gentlemen.
Thank y'all for having me as always, Kev. I really appreciate it. This is a good time, good prospect talk. Anytime I can get on here and at least give a 20 to 25 minute spiel on Cam Akers and get in some phallus jokes, I mean, I'm down for it. Yeah.
And where can people find your guys' work?
All right, I'll go first. Yeah, I do. I host my own podcast called the Debbie Deep Dive Podcast. I've been doing that for about a year. I'm a ranker and writer over at Dynasty Happy Hour and also at the Dynasty Draft Room. So, and I have a YouTube page, which I'm kind of putting a lot of scouting videos out there. It's my bread and butter. I love watching film, taping all the games, cutting them up, looking at them, trying to analyze them, just having fun. So I got a lot of different places I'm at, but then my Debbie Deep Dive Podcast is what I really enjoy doing the most.
I mean, I'm all in the Twitter streets. Check the handle. I mean, you can follow me at Debro_FFB. Working on a lot of Dynasty content, watching some film, looking at players. Really diving into Dynasty heavy right now because it's that time of year, guys. I've got 2 articles in the works for fantasy data. And yeah, that's what's up, man. It's a good time of year. Football, I love to see it. I put this out the other day. I love to see my timeline not only with prospect talk, but a lot of situational and just team talk. Things are slowly starting to heat back up. We're going to have free agency before we know, the draft. And I mean, really, we're going to blink our eyes, and it's going to be July, and we're already talking about drafts again, and the season's going to be here. So love it. Thank y'all for having me. So this is a lot of fun, a lot of good talk, and a lot of sharp people. So appreciate it.
I appreciate it as well, gentlemen. Thank you.
No, we really appreciate having you guys on. I've been just grinding some NASCAR DFS, so that's how you know you're a degenerate when you're grinding the NASCAR DFS. So much fun. Oh man.
Or you need to move to the south, Kev.
Hey, we have Kansas Speedway like 20 minutes away from me. We got NASCAR here, so
nice. Very nice.
For the people at home, you don't have there's not enough party in the back. Okay, you need to change it.
I've been so thinking about doing it. I'm like, you know what? Like, I could so pull it off. Like, you know.
You need to, man. I mean, for NASCAR DFS season, if you're not rocking the party in the back, I don't know what the hell you're doing with your life, but that's just me.
Hey, I've profited each of the last 2 weeks, so we're on a roll. We're building it up in the old Slack chat, but I love some NASCAR DFS. It is fantastic. It's what I do all the way up until preseason DFS starts. So, anyways, Cody, you got anything else before we get out of here?
No, just that on the outro to this pod, I'm gonna fully expect a karaoke version of "All My Life" from you. So if
all my life, I've been waiting for a girl like you. You are welcome. Hey, last week was Golden Girls theme, so I don't know. Maybe we'll figure something else out tonight. Maybe we'll do like Marvin Gaye, "Let's Get It On" or something like that. You know, with all the sex talk we've had. Or, let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me.
I got to take the headset off again.
Me too. I'm following you, Derek.
I just put it back on.
This would also be the perfect time to drop a hashtag Blasty Blast with all the
that was last week. It's been a Blasty Blast. It has been a Blasty Blast tonight. So, anyways. We are ending this podcast, so I appreciate everybody checking it out. Follow us on Twitter at @FF_authority. You can find our YouTube channel. We've been grinding out a bunch of videos, putting out a ton of work there. Came up with a new intro as well. Somebody made for us. Really appreciate that. So we're going to continue putting out a ton of videos on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, we really appreciate it. It helps us grow. And, if you want to jump in our Slack chat we have for Dynasty DFS, if you want to learn about NASCAR DFS, I'm your man. We'll be winning that money, stacking that bankroll up for the NFL season next year so we can bink that millie. So, anyways, again, find me on Twitter at FantasyRat13. Find Cody at @CKutzer. And we really appreciate it. And as I say, thank you for being a friend.